Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2023 Subaru Forester, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, check it out, and make sure it's going to be right for you. So when it comes to these Subarus, you know, people use them to do a little bit of everything. And so by putting a hitch back here, it makes sense. You know, it's going to open up your opportunities on what you're going to be able to accomplish, whether you're trying to pull a trailer around or use an accessory like a bike rack or a cargo carrier. This one's definitely going to get the job done. There are quite a few hitches available for the Forester, and you'll have some that are visible, like the Curt one here. So you're going to be able to see that whole crossbar, and then you'll have some that are more hidden, where they're going to sit behind the bumper, and really the only thing you'll be able to see is that receiver tube opening. And you know, either way, even with the visible ones, they don't look out of place by any means. They sit a little bit further back and up tight against the bottom. So looks right at home, honestly, on a vehicle like the Forester. To compare this one to the other visible style ones, the Curt and eTrailer hitch are going to be pretty much identical. Really the only difference is going to be the finish of it. The draw tight, however, that one does sit a little bit further back, and so you don't have quite as much bumper clearance. And so if you're primarily going to be using a folding style accessory, this one and the eTrailer would probably work out a little bit better. This hitch is going to be a class 3, which means it has the 2" by 2" receiver tube opening. Really common size, a lot of stuff will work with it. It is going to use that 5/8 pin. Keep in mind though, pin and clip doesn't come included. If you need one, you can grab it here at eTrailer. Or a lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, they'll come with one. So something to look out for there. The safety chain openings do sit back a little ways, but you know, still manageable. And the openings are quite large. So just about any size hook that your trailer might have on it should work out just fine. As far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 525-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. That's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. It's a pretty high number. You should be able to use just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier that you'd want to, for example. And for the maximum gross trailer weight rating, that's going to be 3,500 pounds, or the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. So that is the weight of your trailer plus anything you might have in or on it. I do always like to recommend though, never a bad idea just to grab your Subaru's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your Forester can handle that much weight safely. We'll grab a couple measurements now, and these will help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 14.5 inches. So if you plan on pulling a trailer, you could probably use a ball mount that either has a straight shank or one with a slight rise. Maybe up to 2 inches would probably work out for most people. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 4.5 inches, which is pretty good, so you really shouldn't run into any issues, but if need be, you can use that to figure out exactly if any of those folding accessories you might have can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Subaru. At the end of the day, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. Even though it is visible, it still looks good, and it'll be able to handle just about anything you want to throw at it. As far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. You do have to let the exhaust come down a little bit to give you more room to work. It's not a huge deal, it's pretty easy. Take a small panel down off this side and put the hardware in the frame and bolt the hitch up. So it shouldn't run into too many issues or take up a bunch of your time. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Forester, and we're going to start by removing this underbody panel here on the driver's side. So along the edge, you're going to have 3 push pin style fasteners. With these, you can just take a flathead screwdriver, pry down on the head, and then you're able to pull the whole base out. So we'll get those. And then kind of up behind our rear wheel, we're going to have a couple more. You'll have this one here. Essentially works the same way. And then a little bit closer to the edge of the wheel well, you'll have this one as well. And on the bottom of your frame rail, you're going to have two 10mm head bolts. We can remove those. We should be able to take this panel and work it out from underneath of our vehicle here. We need to lower our exhaust. I like to support it first, so that way we can kind of control how fast and how far you let it come down. So I'm just going to take a strap and run it from side to side here. It's going to be a total of 3 isolator hangers that we need to remove. Here's one of them. You want to spray it down with some soapy water or some type of lubricant. Makes it a lot easier, and then you can just take a pry bar or big screwdriver, whatever you got, and work one end of that hanger off. The other one is just going to be kind of in this area on the other side of our muffler. Here's where that other one is located. And we'll use that same technique to get it removed. Following the exhaust towards the front of the car, there's one more hanger. Once we get that one pried off, we can loosen up our strap a little bit and let the exhaust come down a little ways. We'll get our heat shield removed. So there's going to be 4 10mm head screws, one in each corner. We can lower this down from underneath the car. The bottom of your frame rail, you're going to have 4 rubber plugs, and we can just pop these out with a screwdriver. And from this point on, whatever we do to one side of the vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. Moving back to our heat shield, we're going to need to create some openings in it, that way our hardware can pass through. And so there's 2 little dimples on it that you can use. And I'm just going to take a hole saw and drill them out. Before we worry about putting our heat shield back up, we need to get the hardware in the frame rails, because if we reinstall this right now, it'll actually block that access hole. This is going to be our access hole. Well, the problem is the hardware that needs to go up in the frame, the spacer block and the bolt, it's too big to fit up through there. So what we're going to do is just enlarge this a little bit, that way this will be able to pass up in there. If you have a power tool with some type of grinding bit, that'd really speed things up, but thankfully you don't need to remove a whole lot of material. So if you have a hand file or something, it's definitely manageable. So I'll open it up and check it occasionally until those bolts are able to pass through. So able to get this opened up a little bit, and this is exactly what we're looking for. The spacer block can fit through there easily, and the carriage bolt will be able to go through as well. So to actually get the hardware in the frame, we have our 3 attachment points, and you want to take the coiled end of your fish wire and start with this hole here closest to the back and push that through towards the front and out through the opening. Sometimes you get lucky, it'll drop right out. Other times you might have to reach up there and help it. Well, you can take a spacer block, put that over the pull wire, thread on a carriage bolt, feed it up into the frame, pull it down until it drops through. And I will use that same technique and that same hardware combination for our other two attachment points there. Once you have all the hardware in place, since we did expose some bare metal there by enlarging that hole, I'm just going to come back with a paint stick and get a layer of paint over it just to help against rust and stuff. You can also use spray paint, whatever you got. Something's better than nothing. And the rest of the hardware that we're going to use to actually secure the hitch. So once we get everything up in place here in a moment, the bolts will pass through the hitch. You can remove one of the pull wires and put on one of these flange nuts. Back on the passenger side here, we need to get our heat shield in place, and so you can actually feed the pull wires through those holes that we opened up. And then we can re-secure this the opposite way that we removed it, really with one exception. Don't reinstall that bolt there because it'll interfere with the hitch. So we'll just put these three back in. Now if you got someone to give you a hand with this part, it definitely makes it easier. You can take your hitch and drop the pull wires through the holes in it, and then we'll lift it up into position until we get our bolts to pass through. And then once they do, you can remove one of the pull wires, take that flange nut, and get it started hand tight. And something that you can do as well to make it a little bit easier is whenever you're trying to put that flange nut on, a lot of times that bolt will kind of want to push up into place. So if you can, just apply a little side pressure to that bolt. Helps keep it steady, makes it a lot easier to get the nut started. Once all the hardware is in place and hand tight, you can come back with a 3/4 inch socket and snug it all down. Want to make sure and come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. We can rehang our exhaust now. So with these, you can just re-lubricate them. Just kind of put them in place by hand. And once it is supporting itself again, we can get our strap removed. So I went ahead and reinstalled our underbody panel opposite way that we removed it. Really with one exception. Where the bolts go up into the frame, you can only put the one in the front because the hitch is covering up the other hole, but not a big deal. Still super solid, not gonna have to worry about it. But with that complete now, that will finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2023 Subaru Forester.